The military masterpiece of the Six-Day War enabled Israel, a relatively small state, to vanquish the combined might of three hostile Arab powers. The operational and tactical brilliance of the Israeli military machine ensured dominance in both air and land, against overwhelming odds. So how did a nation, 375 times smaller than Australia, launch an attack which would triple its size within 6 days? In what was to be one of the most devastatingly effective, one-sided military campaigns since the Second World War. Being a nation of 2.5 million Jews facing 100 million Arabs, defense was never an option. It would always have to attack first or be destroyed. With an attack-orientated doctrine, the IAF focused on preemptive strikes, gaining the momentum of battle from the onset to ensure the numerically superior enemy could not bring all their forces to bear. As stated in the U.S. Naval War College report by Paul S. Grosgold, titled The 1967 Arab-Israeli War, an operational study of the Sinai Campaign, the military objective to achieve the strategic aim of continued existence was to defeat all enemy forces quickly and deep in his territory. Intrinsic to the Israeli war plan was the need for a preemptive attack to gain the initiative. In terms of offensive and defensive strategy, the Arabs led by Egypt failed to outline a detailed plan of attack, being rather absorbed by the overarching mission to destroy Israel. The military offensive strategy, Operation Kahir, never outlined a specific strategy for the destruction of the Israeli military. On the other hand, the Israeli military focused on striking preemptively air and land, with the objective to eliminate enemy capability to challenge Israeli dominance in both spheres of battle. Being a nation surrounded by three hostile nations, Israel required a short and deadly war to decisively eliminate and secure their national security, which before 1967 was still deemed illegitimate by the Arab world. On the 5th of June 1967, at 7:45, the first wave of 40 Israeli aircraft struck 10 airfields in the Sinai Desert and the banks of the Nile River. Flying low under the radar, Israeli pilots, well trained and armed with the latest French Mirage fighter planes, swooped on Egyptian airfields from the Mediterranean Sea, virtually undetected. Within 3 hours, the Israeli Air Force had destroyed 309 of Egypt's 340 combat aircraft, while disabling most Egyptian airfields with new anti-one-way rockets, which cratered upon impact. This single act determined the outcome of the Six-Day War, ensuring total air supremacy and paving the way for a blitzkrieg in the Middle East. Israeli armored doctrine followed closely with the legendary German blitzkrieg of World War II. Blitzkrieg involved an attacking force, spearheaded by concentrated armor and motorized infantry, whose goal was to dislocate and encircle the enemy in short and overwhelming battle maneuvers. Enemy strongpoints were to be bypassed, to be dealt with by follow-up forces, while armor spearheads raced to encircle the enemy, cutting them off from reinforcements or supplies whilst causing wide-scale panic. During the Six-Day War, the Egyptian front, centered on the Sinai Peninsula, was to be a textbook employment of such devastating military strategy. The Egyptian army, although decisively overwhelming on paper, with a numerical advantage, and being well equipped with the latest Soviet weaponry, were poorly led and trained. Comparatively, Israeli armored forces were few in number, but equipped with British Centurion and French light tanks, which focused on quality rather than quantity, being better employed and commanded by well-trained crews. Essentially, the military doctrines of the Arab nations and Israel reflected the wider Cold War between the Soviet Union, whose military doctrine focused on the use of sheer numbers to overwhelm the enemy, rather than the quality and well-trained forces favored by the Western world. By June 8, a mere 3 days after the initiation of hostilities, the Egyptian front was subdued, with the total occupation of the Sinai region. The military brilliance of both armor and air forces of Israel allowed for a complete destruction of the Egyptian military, the largest and best equipped of the Arab nations. With a combination of superior training, leadership and motivation, whilst exploiting both air and land superiority, Israeli forces pulled off a 6-day miracle, humiliating the Arab world for a generation in what was, and still is, one of the most one-sided military victories in history.